Welcome, traveler. Tonight, we are going to leave the modern world far behind. We are going to set aside the noise, the lights, and the hurried pace of today. And we are going to drift back to a time when the world was measured by the slow movement of the sun and the steady, rhythmic heartbeat of the earth. As you settle into your blankets, let your body become heavy and still. Imagine that the room around you is fading away, replaced by the cool, crisp air of the high plains. You are standing on the edge of a vast, golden ocean of grass that stretches toward a horizon so wide and so deep that it seems to touch the very edge of eternity in this place. There are no clocks, only the lengthening shadows of the afternoon and the soft, silver arrival of the evening stars. We are going to journey together into the life of the Old West, not through the lens of action or drama, but through the quiet, beautiful simplicity of the everyday. We will feel the warmth of a fading campfire, hear the gentle creak of a leather saddle, and listen to the wind as it whispers through the sagebrush and the tall pines. There is nothing you need to do, and nowhere you need to be. There is no plot to follow, and no conflict to resolve. Just let my voice be a soft light in the darkness, guiding you across the open range and into a state of deep, restorative rest. The prairie is waiting for you, silent and vast, under the moon. Take a deep breath in, feeling the cool air fill your lungs, and as you breathe out, let go of the day. Let the quiet spirit of the frontier settle over you like a warm, heavy quilt. It is time to begin our journey. It is time to find peace in the great quiet of the West. Close your eyes now, and let the world around you begin to dissolve into a soft, hazy memory, replaced by the gentle rustle of a sea of grass that stretches toward a horizon without end. You are standing on the edge of the great open plains, a place where the sky is so vast it feels as though it could hold the entire history of the world within its deep blue depths. The air here is different. It is thin and clean, carrying the scent of sun-dried earth, sweet clover, and the sharp, medicinal tang of wild sagebrush. It is a place of immense stillness, where the only thing that moves is the wind, dancing across the golden stalks of buffalo grass in long, undulating waves that look like the surface of a peaceful ocean. As you begin your journey into this life, imagine the early morning light as it first touches the world. It is not a sudden brightness, but a slow, silver creeping of dawn that gently lifts the veil of night. The stars do not disappear all at once. They linger, fading one by one like the dying embers of a fire, until only the morning star remains, a solitary spark in the pale violet sky. You are lying in your bedroll, tucked beneath layers of heavy canvas and wool blankets that hold the lingering warmth of your body against the crisp, biting cold of the prairie air. The ground beneath you is hard, but it feels stable and honest, a foundation of ancient stone and soil that supports your rest without question. Listen to the silence of the dawn. It is a deep, resonant silence that allows you to hear the smallest details of the world waking up. You hear the soft, rhythmic breathing of the horses tethered nearby, a sound that is steady and comforting, like the ticking of a grandfather clock in a quiet hallway. You hear the occasional clink of a picket pin against a stone as a horse shifts its weight, and the dry, paper-like rustle of the grass as a light breeze begins to wander through the camp. There is no hurry here. The morning does not demand anything of you. It simply unfolds, minute by minute, in a beautiful display of light and shadow in the center of the camp. The small fire from the night before has burned down to a bed of glowing red jewels, hidden beneath a layer of soft gray ash. You watch as a single thin line of blue smoke rises straight up into the still air, a quiet signal to the sky that the day has begun. The ritual of the morning is slow and repetitive, a series of familiar motions that ground the spirit. There is the sound of a match being struck, a sharp, dry scritch, and then the tiny, hungry crackle of dry twigs catching the flame. You smell the wood smoke now, a warm and ancient fragrance that speaks of home and safety in the middle of the wilderness. Then comes the coffee, the lifeblood of the trail. You hear the water beginning to mutter in the heavy tin pot, a low bubbling that grows into a steady boil. The smell of the coffee beans, dark and earthy, mingles with the smoke, creating a scent so rich and comforting that it seems to warm you from the inside before you even take a sip. You hold the tin cup in both hands, feeling the heat seep through the metal and into your palms, chasing away the morning chill. The coffee is strong and bitter, but it is a good bitterness, a taste that belongs to the wind and the dust and the long miles ahead as the sun climbs higher, turning from a pale yellow to a brilliant, burning gold. It is time to meet the horse that will be your companion through the long stretches of the day. Walking toward the horses is a slow process, a way of showing respect to these powerful, silent animals. You feel the warmth of the horse's neck as you lean against it, smelling the honest scent of hay and sweat and leather. Brushing the horse is a meditation in itself, the long, rhythmic strokes of the brush, removing the dust from its coat. The sound of the bristles against the hide creating a soft, hypnotic shush that matches the rhythm of your own breathing. You notice the way the light catches the individual hairs of the horse's mane, turning them into threads of copper and bronze. There is a deep bond here, born of silence and shared miles. As you lift the heavy western saddle, you feel the weight of it in your arms, the thick, oiled leather, smooth and cool to the touch. You place it gently on the horse's back, hearing the soft thump of the sheepskin lining as it settles, the cinching of the girth, the checking of the bit. The adjustment of the stirrups. Each action is performed with a slow, deliberate care. There is no need for words. The horse understands the routine as well as you do. When you finally swing up into the saddle, the world changes. You are no longer a small figure walking on the earth, but a part of a moving rhythm. The creak of the leather beneath you is a song that will play all day long, a steady, comforting melody of creak and sway, as you move out into the open plains. The camp falls away behind you, and you are swallowed by the vastness. The horizon is so far away that it feels like a dream, a hazy line where the golden grass meets the pale blue sky. The heat of the midday sun begins to settle over the landscape, a heavy, golden presence that slows everything down. You feel the sun on your shoulders, a constant, radiating warmth that makes your muscles relax and your thoughts drift. The air begins to shimmer over the distant rises, creating tiny mirages that look like pools of cool water, disappearing as soon as you look too closely. The cattle move before you in a slow, undulating mass, their hooves kicking up a fine, powdery dust that hangs in the air like a golden mist, catching the sunlight and turning the world into a soft focus painting. There are long stretches of time where nothing happens, and in that nothingness, there is a profound peace. You find yourself noticing the small things that you would never see in a busier life. You see the way a hawk hangs motionless in the sky, suspended on an invisible current of air, its wings spread wide as it watches the earth below. You see the tiny, delicate flowers that hide in the shade of the sagebrush pale, blues and bright yellows that bloom for only a few days before returning to the soil. You listen to the sound of your horse's hooves, hitting the earth, sometimes a dull thud on the soft grass, sometimes a sharp clack on a stray stone, random, natural music that keeps you company as the afternoon begins to wane. The shadows grow long and thin, stretching across the prairie like reaching fingers. The light changes from gold to a deep, honeyed amber, and the wind begins to cool, carrying the promise of the coming night. You feel a gentle tiredness in your bones, a satisfied weight that comes from a day spent in harmony with the world. There is no stress in this fatigue, only a readiness for rest. You find a place to stop for the night near a small, winding creek where the water moves slowly over smooth, colorful pebbles. The sound of the water is a constant, liquid babble, a cooling sound that seems to wash away the dust of the trail. You unsaddle the horse, feeling the release of weight as the animal shakes itself, its skin rippling with relief. You lead it to the water's edge, and watch as it drinks. The slow, rhythmic gulping sound, a testament to the simple needs of life. Now, as the sky turns to shades of bruised purple and deep indigo, you prepare your bedroll once again. The ground is still warm from the sun, and as you lie down, you feel that warmth rising up to meet you. The first stars are beginning to appear, flickering into existence in the darkening dome above. There are more stars than you ever thought possible, a dense, glittering carpet of light that makes you feel both small and perfectly at home. The night wind is a soft whisper now, a gentle lullaby that moves through the grass and the leaves of the cottonwood trees by the creek. You pull your blankets up to your chin, feeling the weight of the canvas, the softness of the wool, and the immense, protective silence of the plains. Your breathing slows, matching the slow, steady pulse of the earth. The world is vast, the sky is deep, and you are safe in the heart of the great quiet. Rest now. The plains are still. The horses are grazing. The fire is a soft glow. You are part of the rhythm, part of the silence, and you are drifting into the deep, peaceful sleep of the open range. The transition from the deep, velvet darkness of night to the first gray light of the frontier morning is a slow and silent miracle. As you lie there, nestled deep within the heavy folds of your canvas bedroll, you are aware of the world returning to life with a patience that the modern world has long forgotten. There is no sudden alarm, no harrying noise. There is only the gradual thinning of the shadows and the way the air begins to feel just a little bit lighter, a little bit crisper, as it carries the scent of the waking earth. You feel the weight of your blankets, a comforting, solid pressure that anchors you to the ground, and for a long time, you simply breathe, watching the pale mist of your own breath rise and vanish into the cool morning air. Out here, on the edge of the endless horizon, the dawn does not arrive all at once. It begins as a faint, silver line at the very rim of the world, a soft glow that looks like a distant memory of light. Gradually, that silver turns to a delicate, bruised purple, then to a soft, dusty rose that paints the underside of the few wandering clouds. You watch this transformation from the stillness of your bed, feeling a deep sense of belonging to this vast, open space. The plains are so wide that you can see the curve of the earth, and in this quiet hour, it feels as though you are the only soul awake in a cathedral made of grass and sky. You listen to the sounds of the frontier waking up, each one distinct and intentional. There is the soft, dry scuttle of a lizard moving through the brush, and the distant, lonely hoo-hoo of a great horned owl, returning to its roost in a stand of cottonwood trees. Far off, perhaps miles away across the rolling hills, you hear the low, resonant moo of a cow, a sound so deep and mournful that it seems to vibrate through the very soil beneath you. These sounds do not break the silence. They only emphasize how deep and peaceful it truly is. Slowly, you begin the ritual of rising. Every movement is deliberate, every action a small prayer of routine. You reach out from the warmth of your bedroll to find your boots, the leather cold and stiff from the night air. You pull them on slowly, feeling the familiar shape of the worn heel, and the way the leather gradually warms against your skin. Next comes your hat, a sturdy companion that has seen 1,000 suns. As you settle it onto your head, you feel a sense of protection, a boundary between you and the immense sky that is now turning a bright, clear turquoise. The camp is still draped in the long, blue shadows of the early morning. You walk with soft steps across the dew-dampened grass, the moisture soaking into the edges of your trousers with a cool, refreshing touch. You find the remains of the fire, where a few stubborn embers still pulse with a faint, orange light beneath the gray ash. You kneel down, your joints feeling a gentle stiffness that will soon melt away with the sun. You add a few handfuls of dry grass and small twigs, blowing softly a slow, steady stream of air until the first yellow flame licks upward, tasting the wood. The crackle of the fire is a friendly sound, a small, domestic music that marks the center of your world, as the sun finally breaks over the horizon. It is as if a golden floodgate has been opened. The light spills across the plains, turning every blade of grass into a sliver of gold and making the dew-covered sagebrush sparkle like a field of emeralds. You stand there for a moment, bathed in this first, true warmth, feeling the sun on your face and the way it begins to chase the chill from your bones. This is the moment when the horizon feels truly endless, a line that pulls at the spirit, promising nothing but more space, more silence, and more time. In this life, time is not measured by minutes, but by the movement of shadows and the changing colors of the light. You realize that there is no need to hurry. The cattle will graze, the horses will wander, and the wind will blow, regardless of your pace. You find a deep comfort in this lack of urgency. You spend the next hour simply tending to the small needs of the morning. You walk to the nearby creek, where the water is so clear, you can see the speckled trout resting in the shadows of the stones. You dip your hands into the water, and the coldness is so sharp it feels like a physical awakening, a bright spark of life that cleanses the lingering fog of sleep from your mind. You watch the way the water swirls around your fingers, forming tiny eddies and ripples that catch the morning light. The sound of the creek is a constant, gentle burble, a liquid lullaby that seems to speak of ancient things, of the mountain snows where it began and the far-off rivers where it will eventually go. You fill a bucket, the metal handle creaking softly, and carry it back to the fire, the weight of the water providing a steady, grounding rhythm to your walk. Back at the camp, you begin the slow process of preparing a simple meal. There is a deep beauty in the repetition of these tasks, the slicing of the salt pork, the measuring of the flour for the biscuits, the slow stirring of the gravy in the heavy cast iron skillet. The skillet is black and seasoned by years of use, a heavy, reliable tool that has seen countless mornings just like this one. The smell of the cooking food begins to drift through the air, a warm, savory scent that mingles with the sweetness of the morning air and the sharpness of the wood smoke. It is a humble smell, but in the middle of the wilderness, it is the smell of luxury. As you eat, sitting on an overturned crate or a smooth stone, you look out over the landscape. The cattle are moving now, a slow-motion sea of red and white and brown, drifting across the hills in search of the freshest grass. You see the cowponies grazing nearby, their tails swishing rhythmically to ward off the first few flies of the day. You notice the way your lead horse, a steady bay with a white star on its forehead, looks up at you with large, dark, intelligent eyes, its ears twitching as it listens to the sounds of the camp. There is a profound sense of companionship in that look, a silent understanding between man and beast that needs no translation. The morning unfolds like a slow-blooming flower. You spend time checking your gear, running your hands over the smooth, oiled leather of your saddle, feeling for any wear or tear. You check the buckles, the stirrup leathers, and the cinch, your fingers moving with a practiced ease that comes from years of habit. You find peace in the maintenance of your tools, the way a well-cared-for piece of equipment feels right in the hand. You take out a small whetstone and sharpen your pocket knife. The she of the blade against the stone, a rhythmic, hypnotic sound that clears your mind of any stray thoughts. By the time the sun is high enough to cast short, dark shadows beneath the sagebrush, the world has settled into the steady hum of the day. The vastness of the plains no longer feels overwhelming. It feels like a home. You realize that you are a small part of this landscape, as much a part of it as the grass and the stones and the wind. You feel a sense of deep, quiet strength, a resilience that comes from living simply and in tune with the rhythms of the earth. The horizon is still there, a constant, shimmering promise of distance. It reminds you that there is always more to see, always another valley, another ridge, another hidden creek. But for now, you are content to be exactly where you are. You lean back against a wagon wheel or a fence post, closing your eyes for just a moment to feel the full warmth of the sun on your skin. The world is quiet. The air is still. The only sound is the distant, rhythmic thump-thump of a horse's hoof on the earth, and the soft sigh of the wind as it moves through the endless sea of grass. You are drifting now, not into sleep, but into a state of perfect presence. You are aware of the weight of your body, the softness of the air, and the incredible, beautiful silence of the frontier. This is the endless horizon. This is the great quiet. And as the day continues its slow, golden march across the sky, you find yourself ready for whatever the stillness brings. Rest your mind in this space. Let the image of the golden plains stay with you. A wide and peaceful sanctuary where time has no meaning, and the only task is to be still and breathe. The horizon is waiting, the sun is warm, and you are exactly where you belong. The ranch begins its day not with a shout or a sudden movement, but with a series of quiet, rhythmic whispers that speak of a long-established harmony between man, animal, and the earth. As you imagine yourself stepping out from the heavy wooden door of the ranch house, the first thing you feel is the immense, cool weight of the morning air. It is a stillness so profound that the world seems held in a silver breath, waiting for the sun to fully claim the valley. The ranch buildings, the low-slung house, the weathered gray barn, and the winding lines of the corrals are silhouetted against a sky that is slowly turning from the deep, velvety indigo of night to a soft, translucent pearl. Your boots make a slow, hollow thud-thud on the wooden porch boards, a sound that echoes gently in the morning quiet. You pause for a moment, leaning against one of the cedar posts that supports the roof, and you watch the world emerge from the shadows. Down in the draws and the low spots of the meadow, a thick, white mist clings to the ground like a fallen cloud, hiding the hooves of the horses and the bottom rails of the fences. It is a soft, blurring veil that makes the ranch feel like a dream, a place tucked away from the rest of the world where time moves at the pace of the drifting fog. The first task of the morning is one of the most peaceful, a visit to the iron water pump that stands near the center of the yard. You walk toward it through the damp grass, noticing how the dew clings to the toes of your boots, turning the leather a dark, rich brown. As you reach the pump, you place your hand on the cold, heavy handle. There is a specific music to this ritual, the dry, metallic clank creak as you lift the handle, the hollow sound of the air being pushed through the pipe. And then, after a few rhythmic strokes, the sudden, joyful gush of water spilling into the wooden bucket. The water is drawn from deep beneath the earth, and it is so cold that it makes the tin bucket sweat in the morning air. You watch the surface of the water settle until it becomes a perfect mirror, reflecting the pale sky and the first few pink-tinged clouds of the dawn. As you carry the bucket toward the barn, the weight of it provides a steady, grounding pull on your arm, a physical reminder of the simple necessities of this life. The barn is a place of deep shadows and wonderful, earthy smells. As you step inside, you are greeted by the warm, sweet fragrance of cured alfalfa and the dry, dusty scent of old timber and grain. The air in here is still and heavy, filled with the presence of the horses, who are waking up in their stalls. You hear the soft, rhythmic crunch of a horse finishing its night hay, and the gentle nicker of greeting, a low, vibrating sound in the throat that is one of the most comforting noises in the world. In the dim light, you can see the dust motes dancing in the thin shafts of sun that are beginning to pierce through the cracks in the barn walls. These golden threads of light illuminate the textures of the ranch, the rough grain of the wood, the coiled strength of the lariats hanging on their pegs, and the smooth, worn surfaces of the saddles. You move with a slow, practiced grace, filling the mangers with fresh hay. The sound of the pitchfork sliding into the hay is a soft hiss, and as you toss the flakes of grass into the stalls, a fine, sweet-smelling dust fills the air, catching the light and turning the barn into a golden cathedral of simple work. There is no rush to finish these chores. Each movement is a part of a long, slow meditation. You take a moment to lean against the stall door of your favorite horse, a steady-eyed sorrel with a coat the color of a sunset. You feel the warmth radiating from the animal's body, a living heat that smells of home and reliability. You run your hand down the horse's velvet nose, feeling the soft breath against your palm. The horse leans into your touch, its eyes half closed in a state of quiet contentment that matches your own. In this moment, there is no past and no future. There is only the warmth of the barn, the scent of the hay, and the steady, peaceful heartbeat of the ranch outside. The sun has finally cleared the eastern ridges, and the world is suddenly transformed. The mist in the meadows begins to burn away, shredding into long ethereal ribbons that vanish into the bright blue air. The light hits the weathered wood of the ranch house, turning the gray boards to silver and making the windows glow with an amber fire. You walk to the corral, where the rest of the horses are gathered. They move with a slow, heavy grace, their hooves stirring up the fine, dry dust of the yard into a soft, golden haze. You watch them for a while, fascinated by the way they interact, the gentle nudge of a shoulder, the flick of a tail, the shared silence of the morning. The routine of the ranch is built on these small, repetitive acts of care. You spend the next hour checking the tack, your fingers moving over the leather with a familiarity that requires no thought. You feel the suppleness of the reins, the strength of the stirrup leathers, and the cool weight of the bits. There's a deep satisfaction in the maintenance of these things, a sense of order and readiness that brings a quiet peace to the mind. You find a small tear in a saddle blanket and sit on a sun-warmed bench to mend it. The rhythmic push and pull of the needle through the heavy wool, becoming a lullaby of its own as the morning progresses. The heat of the sun begins to settle over the ranch, a gentle, radiating warmth that brings out the scent of the pine trees and the dry earth. You hear the distant clink of a hammer from the blacksmith shed, a slow and steady beat that sounds like a clock marking the passage of a very long, very peaceful day. You see the ranch dog stretched out in a patch of shade, its tail giving a single, lazy thump against the ground as you pass by. Everything about this place is designed for endurance and quiet. The wide porches, the thick walls, the deep wells, they are all built to withstand the elements and to provide a sanctuary in the middle of the vastness. As you stand in the center of the yard, looking out toward the mountains that frame the horizon, you feel a sense of profound stillness. The world is so large, and yet your place in it is so clear and simple. Your life is defined by the needs of the animals, the turning of the seasons, and the slow, inevitable movement of the light. You realize that this morning, like so many others before it, is a gift of time. There are no letters to answer, no appointments to keep, and no noise to drown out your thoughts. There is only the wind, which has begun to pick up, a soft, warm breeze that carries the song of the meadowlarks and the distant, rhythmic lowing of the herd in the south pasture. You breathe in deeply, feeling the clarity of the air fill your chest. And as you breathe out, you let go of any lingering tension. The ranch is a world of its own, a slow-moving island in a sea of grass. Here, the beginnings are always gentle. The light is always gold, and the work is always a way of being present in the beauty of the world. You find yourself drifting into a state of deep, quiet observation, watching the way a hawk circles higher and higher into the blue, or the way the shadows of the clouds move like slow, dark ships across the hills. Rest in this feeling of safety and routine. Let the sounds of the ranch, the creak of the gate, the splash of the water, the soft breath of the horses wrap around you like a warm, familiar quilt. The day has begun, but it has begun with kindness and with peace. You are home, the horizon is wide, and the morning is yours to savor in the deep, restorative quiet of the frontier. Let your mind rest now, as the sun warms the wood of the porch and the world settles into its long, slow afternoon rhythm. Everything is as it should be. The ranch is still, the light is soft, and you are perfectly, beautifully at peace. There is a unique kind of silence that exists between a person and a horse, a quiet understanding that doesn't require a single word to be spoken, As you settle deeper into your rest, imagine yourself standing by the weathered wooden rails of the corral, the morning sun casting long golden stripes across the dusty ground. Before you stands your horse, a calm, powerful presence whose breathing is slow and rhythmic, matching the very pulse of the land. This is your companion, the one who shares every mile of the trail and every hour of the long, lonely watches. There is a deep, ancient comfort in this companionship, a bond built on the simple, repetitive acts of care and the shared experience of the vast, open horizon. You begin the morning grooming, a ritual that is as much for your own peace of mind as it is for the horse's comfort. You take a wooden-handled brush, its bristles stiff and worn from years of use, and you begin to move it in long, sweeping strokes along the horse's flank. The sound is a soft, rhythmic shush-shush, a hypnotic melody that seems to harmonize with the distant song of the wind in the pines. As you work, you see the fine silvery dust rise from the horse's coat, dancing in the shafts of sunlight like tiny floating diamonds. You feel the strength of the muscles beneath the skin, a quiet, dormant power that is perfectly at rest. The scent of the horse is honest and grounding, a mixture of sun-warmed hair, dried grass, and the faint, sweet smell of the earth. It is a fragrance that has remained unchanged for centuries, a smell that signals safety, reliability, and the simple reality of the trail. You move to the horse's head, and it gently nudges your shoulder with its soft, velvet muzzle. You feel the warm, moist breath against your hand, a gentle huff of recognition. You look into its large, dark eyes, and you see a reflection of the wide-open world, calm, patient, and entirely present in this single, golden moment. Now, you move toward the tack room, a small, shaded space that smells deeply of rich, oiled leather and seasoned wood. Here, your saddle hangs on its wooden peg, a heavy and familiar object that has shaped itself to you over thousands of miles. You run your fingers over the smooth surface of the leather, feeling the patterns of the hand-tooled roses and the way the oil has darkened the skin to the color of deep mahogany. There is a weight to the saddle that feels right in your hands, solid, dependable weight that speaks of endurance. You lift the saddle blanket, made of thick, woven wool, and as you shake it out, you smell the faint, lingering scent of wood smoke and mountain air that has been trapped in its fibers. Back at the horse's side, you place the blanket with a practiced, gentle hand, smoothing out any wrinkles with a slow, sweeping motion. Then comes the saddle. You lift it high, feeling the strength in your own arms, and let it settle onto the horse's back with a soft, muffled thud. The horse doesn't flinch. It simply shifts its weight, a silent sign of trust. You reach under the belly for the cinch, the long strap of braided mohair that will hold everything in place. The process is slow and deliberate. You pull the leather latigo through the ring, feeling the tension rise as you tighten the cinch. Not too tight, just enough to be secure. You hear the creak of the leather as it settles, a sound that is as much a part of the West as the howl of a coyote or the rustle of the grass. Finally, you take the bridle, the headstall of thin, supple leather, and the bit made of cold, gray steel. You hold the bit in the palm of your hand for a moment, letting the warmth of your skin take the chill off the metal before the horse takes it. The horse opens its mouth willingly, and you slide the leather over its ears with a gentle touch. Everything is ready now. You stand back for a moment, looking at the horse, fully tacked and standing patient in the morning light. It is a beautiful sight, the silver buckles catching the sun, the dark leather gleaming, and the animal standing as still as a statue against the backdrop of the rolling hills. When you finally put your foot into the stirrup and swing up into the seat, you feel a sense of completion. You are no longer two separate beings, but one single rhythm moving across the face of the earth. As the horse begins to walk, you feel the slow side-to-side sway of its hips, a motion that is echoed in the movement of your own body. It is a rocking, cradle-like rhythm that makes your mind drift and your muscles loosen. The clink of the bit and the thud of the hooves on the soft turf become a lullaby, a steady beat that carries you away from the worries of the world and into the heart of the silence. You ride out away from the ranch, leaving the buildings behind until they are nothing more than small specks on the horizon. Out here, the companionship of the horse is your entire world. You find yourself leaning forward to pat the horse's neck, feeling the heat of its body and the steady, powerful movement of its shoulders. You talk to the horse sometimes, not in sentences, but in low, humming tones, soft easy now, or a quiet good lad, sounds that are meant more to share the silence than to break it. The horse flickers its ears back toward you, listening, acknowledging your presence in this vast, empty space. The day stretches out before you, a long golden ribbon of time. You aren't riding toward a destination. You are simply riding. You watch the way the horse's ears move, tracking the sound of a hidden spring or the movement of a deer in the brush. You trust the horse's instincts as much as your own, knowing that it sees and hears things in the landscape that you might miss. This shared awareness creates a deep sense of security. Even though you are miles from any other human being, you are never truly alone. As the sun climbs to its highest point, casting a short, dark shadow beneath the horse's belly, you find a lone cottonwood tree near a dry creek bed. You dismount to let the horse rest, and as you stand together in the thin, flickering shade of the leaves, you feel the immense peace of the midday heat. The air is still and heavy, smelling of dry dust and sun-baked timber. You loosen the cinch to let the horse breathe easier, and you watch as it lowers its head, its eyes drooping in a momentary doze. You lean your back against the rough bark of the tree, closing your eyes and listening to the soft munch-munch of the horse grazing on a patch of buffalo grass nearby. In this moment of stillness, you realize that this is the heart of the cowboy's life. It isn't the excitement or the movement, but these long, quiet stretches of being present with another living soul in the middle of a beautiful, indifferent wilderness. The horse is a mirror of the landscape, strong, silent, and enduring. And as you sit there, drifting in and out of a light, sun-warmed sleep, you feel the bond between you growing stronger in the silence. The afternoon begins to fade, and the light turns to a soft, liquid honey. You tighten the cinch once more and begin the slow ride back toward the home range. The shadows of the horse's legs stretch out long and thin across the grass, moving like the spokes of a giant, slow-turning wheel. The world is cooling now, the wind carrying the first hint of the night's chill, but the warmth of the horse beneath you remains a constant comfort. As you reach the corral once again and begin the process of unsaddling, you move with a sense of gratitude. Each piece of leather you remove, each buckle you undo, is a way of saying thank you for the miles shared. You rub the horse down with a handful of dry grass, feeling the salt of its sweat and the relaxation of its muscles. When you finally turn the horse loose into the pasture, you watch as it trots away a few steps, gives a great, rolling shake that rattles its whole body, and then settles down to graze in the twilight. You stand by the fence for a long time, watching the dark shape of the horse against the fading purple of the sky. The first stars are beginning to pulse overhead, and the world is settling into its nightly rest. You feel a deep, heavy tiredness in your own limbs, a satisfaction that goes down to the bone. You are ready for sleep, and as you walk back toward your own bed, you carry the rhythm of the horse's walk and the smell of the leather with you. The prairie is silent, the horses are at peace, and you, too, are drifting into the great, quiet, dark, guided by the memory of the long day's ride and the silent companionship of the trail. Rest now, for the horizon is still, and the heart of the west is watching over you. As you settle further into your rest, imagine the world expanding until there are no walls, no ceilings, and no boundaries, only the immense, curving bowl of the sky and the endless, rolling carpet of the earth. Today, we are moving with the herd. This is not a journey of speed or excitement. It is a slow, drifting migration across the heart of the wilderness. It is a day measured in the rhythmic swaying of a horse's back and the low, steady murmur of thousands of living, breathing souls moving as one across the grass. The drive begins in the soft, golden haze of the mid-morning. The cattle, a sea of deep reds, dusty browns, and speckled whites, have finished their morning grazing and are ready to move. There is no shouting here, no sudden movements to startle the animals. Instead, there is only the gentle nudge of the horses and the soft, melodic whistles of the riders. You find your place at the edge of the herd, your horse stepping surely through the tall grass, its ears forward and its mind focused on the task at hand. The movement of the cattle is like the flow of a slow, heavy river, hurried, powerful, and inevitable. Listen to the music of the drive. It is a symphony of low-frequency sounds that settle deep in your chest. There is the thump-thump of thousands of cloven hooves striking the dry earth. A sound so constant and rhythmic that it begins to feel like your own heartbeat. There is the occasional low, resonant moo that ripples through the herd, a sound that carries for miles across the open air. And beneath it all is the constant rustle of the grass being parted, a sound like the tearing of fine silk. It is a hypnotic cadence that lulls the mind into a state of deep, wandering peace. As the sun climbs higher into the pale blue vault of the sky, the world becomes a study in light and dust. The cattle kick up a fine, powdery mist from the trail of dust that is not dirty, but golden. It hangs in the air, catching the sunlight and turning the atmosphere into something thick and liquid, as if you are riding through a dream of amber. You pull your neckerchief up over your nose, the fabric smelling of sun-dried cotton and old wood smoke. You feel the fine grit on your skin, a gentle reminder of your connection to the land. This is the quiet hardship of the trail, the heat of the sun on your neck, the dust in the air, but it is described not as a struggle, but as a part of the natural order. A weight that is easy to carry, because the world is so beautiful. The horizon today is a shimmering line of heat, where the grass meets the sky in a soft, blurred edge. You watch the clouds, those great, white ships of the prairie, as they sail slowly across the blue. Their shadows move over the herd like cool, dark blankets, providing a moment of relief from the golden warmth of the sun. You find yourself timing your breathing to the movement of these shadows, feeling a sense of deep synchronization with the weather and the wind. Your horse is a marvel of steady energy. You feel the ripple of its muscles beneath the saddle, a constant, swaying motion that makes your own body feel heavy and relaxed. You are not guiding the horse so much as you are traveling with it. The horse knows the rhythm of the cattle. It knows when to move closer to nudge a stray back into the fold, and when to simply amble along the flank. You lean back slightly, your hands resting light on the reins, and let your gaze wander over the ocean of hides before you. In the repetition of the movement, the individual cows disappear, and you see only the collective grace of the herd, moving in harmony with the contours of the hills. Midday brings a shift in the energy of the world. The heat becomes a physical presence, a warm weight that slows the pulse of the earth. The herd naturally slows its pace, seeking the draws where the grass is a little greener and the air a little stiller. You find a moment to stop by a lone, weathered cedar tree that has stood against the wind for 100 years. As you dismount, the silence of the plains rushes back in to fill the space left by the hooves. It is a profound, ringing silence, broken only by the click-click of a grasshopper or the distant, lonely cry of a hawk circling in the thermals. You lead your horse to a small tank, a natural depression in the earth, where the last of the spring rains have gathered into a clear, still pool. You watch the horse drink, the water rippling out in perfect, silver circles from its muzzle. The sound of the drinking, that slow, rhythmic lap and gulp, is incredibly soothing, a testament to the simple, cooling mercy of the water. You splash some of the cool liquid on your own face, feeling the sharp, refreshing sting against your sun-warmed skin. For a few minutes, you simply sit on the bank, watching the dragonflies hover over the reeds, their wings shimmering like spun glass. The afternoon ride is the longest part of the day, a time when the world seems to stand still. The sun begins its long, slow descent toward the west, and the light changes from a brilliant white to a rich, heavy honey. The shadows of the cattle grow long and thin, stretching out across the grass like the fingers of a giant hand. You move into the drag, the back of the herd where the pace is the slowest and the dust is the thickest. Here, the world is hushed and hazy. You watch the swaying tails of the cattle and the slow, heavy movement of their heads, and you feel a deep, wandering drowsiness. The repetitive nature of the work becomes a form of prayer, a way of being completely present in the passing of time. There is a deep human comfort in this long-form movement. You think of the generations of people who have crossed these same plains, moved by the same needs and guided by the same stars. You feel a sense of belonging to a long, quiet lineage of travelers. The hardship of the day, the long hours in the saddle, the thirst, the dust begins to feel like a badge of peace. It is a physical weariness that clears the mind of all clutter, leaving only the essential truths of the wind, the grass, and the sky. As the evening begins to settle, the air turns cool and sweet. The scent of the grass changes, releasing a fragrance that is green and spicy, cooled by the rising dew. The herd begins to settle in a wide, shallow basin, where the grass is thick and the hills provide a natural shelter from the night wind. You watch as the cattle, one by one, fold their legs and sink into the earth, their heavy bodies sighing as they find their rest. The sound of 1,000 cattle settling for the night is a low, rolling rumble, like distant thunder fading into the hills. You ride the rim of the camp for one last circuit, checking the perimeter in the fading violet light. The world is turning blue now, the first stars pulsing into view in the eastern sky. Your horse's hooves make a soft muffled thud on the dampening ground. You feel the transition from the movement of the day to the stillness of the night. It is a transition that happens within you, as well, your muscles beginning to let go of the day's rhythm, your mind settling into the quiet expectations of the dark. The camp is a small, warm spark in the vastness. You see the yellow glow of the lanterns and the orange flicker of the cooking fire. As you finally unsaddle your horse and turn it out to graze, you feel a profound sense of accomplishment that has nothing to do with speed or profit. You have moved with the earth. You have kept pace with the sun. You have been a part of the long, slow story of the horizon. Now, as you prepare your own bed beneath the sheltering stars, let the memory of the long ride carry you away. Feel the phantom sway of the horse beneath you, a gentle rocking that persists even as you lie still. Hear the distant, rhythmic breathing of the herd, a communal sigh that echoes the wind. The plains are wide, the sky is deep, and the journey of the day has brought you to a place of perfect, restorative rest. The cattle are sleeping, the wind is a whisper, and you are drifting into the endless, starlit quiet of the open range. Imagine now that the sun has reached its absolute zenith, hanging in the center of the vast, pale blue vault of the sky, like a heavy, golden coin that has been polished by the wind. The shadows, which were so long and graceful in the early morning, have now retreated, pulling themselves back until they hide directly beneath the bellies of the horses and the low, spreading branches of the silver-gray sagebrush. This is the hour of the great stillness, a time when the entire prairie seems to hold its breath in the radiant, shimmering heat of the midday. Out here, time is not a ticking clock, but a slow liquid movement of light, and the very air feels thick and warm, as if you are moving through a beautiful, silent dream of amber honey. You find yourself guided by the ancient instinct of the land to seek a moment of pause, a quiet intermission in the long story of the day. You steer your horse toward a lone, weathered outcropping of rimrock, where the old red stone has been carved into soft flowing shapes by centuries of passing winds and the gentle touch of the sand. As you dismount, the silence of the noon settles over you like a heavy, velvet cloak. It is a profound, humming silence, the kind of silence that has a physical presence. A low-frequency vibration born of the sun hitting the dry earth and the distant, rhythmic buzzing of a lone cicada hidden in a nearby thicket of buffalo grass. Your horse stands beside you, its head lowered and its large, dark eyes half closed in a state of quiet, standing meditation. You hear the slow, rhythmic thump of its tail as it lazily brushes away a stray fly, and the sound of its breathing, which has become deep, steady, and resonant in the hushed air. You reach for your canteen, which is hanging from the horn of your saddle, its canvas cover damp and cool against the heat of your palm. As you unscrew the metal cap, the clink-clink of the small security chain is a bright, clear sound that seems to echo for miles across the empty range. The water inside is no longer ice-cold, but it is sweet and honest, tasting of the minerals of the earth and the long miles of the trail. You drink slowly, feeling the liquid move down your throat, a quiet, simple mercy that reminds you of the beautiful reality of being alive in this vast, open space. You sit with your back against the sun-warmed stone, feeling the heat seep through the thick denim of your jacket and into the muscles of your shoulders, relaxing every fiber of your being until you feel as though you might melt into the rock itself. You pull your hat down low over your eyes, creating a small, private world of cool, dark shadow beneath the wide brim. From this vantage point, the world looks different. The vibrant colors of the morning have been bleached by the intensity of the light, the greens of the grass turning to a soft, dusty silver, and the red of the distant mesas becoming a pale, glowing terracotta that seems to vibrate in the heat. The distance is blurred by heat mirages, tiny, shifting ripples of light that look like pools of cool, blue water resting on the trail. They appear and disappear with the whim of the breeze, dancing on the horizon like ghosts of the rain. In this state of rest, the hardships of the cowboy, life, the dust, the wind, the long hours feel distant and gentle, like a story told a long time ago. They are replaced by a deep, wandering contentment that fills your chest with every slow breath you take. You listen to the prairie hum, a symphony of small, natural sounds that usually go unnoticed. You hear the dry, paper-like rustle of a tumbleweed as it rolls a few inches in a stray puff of wind. You hear the rhythmic click-click of a grasshopper leaping through the dry stalks, and the soft, mournful whistle of a mourning dove hidden somewhere deep within the crevices of the rimrock. These sounds do not interrupt the quiet. They are the voice of the quiet itself, a lullaby of the high plains. As the minutes stretch into an hour, you find yourself noticing the smallest, most delicate details of the world around you. You watch a line of tiny rust-colored ants as they navigate the ridges and valleys of a piece of fallen cedar bark, their movements purposeful and steady in the face of the vastness. You see the way the sunlight catches the crystalline edges of a quartz pebble near your boot, making it spark like a fallen star that has found its home in the dust. You realize that everything here has a place and a purpose, and that in this moment, everything is at rest. The world is so incredibly large, reaching out for hundreds of miles in every direction. And yet, in this small patch of shade, it feels intimate, safe, and perfectly still. You are a part of the stillness now, as much a part of the landscape as the ancient stone and the parched earth. You think of the slow passage of time, how on the prairie, noon isn't just a time on a map of the day, but a state of being. It is the center of the world's breath, a pause between the cool, silver promises of the dawn and the long purple shadows of the coming evening. There is a deep soul-level comfort in this suspension of activity, a sense that for a few golden hours, the world has stopped its turning just to let you breathe and exist without demand. Your thoughts become slow and heavy, moving like white clouds across a windless sky, drifting without direction and without a single worry to anchor them down. You reach into the pocket of your waistcoat and find a small, dry biscuit, eating it slowly, savoring the simple grain and the texture of the crust. Every action you take is deliberate and slow, Every chew is rhythmic. You are living at the pace of the grass, at the pace of the slow-growing lichen on the rocks. You feel the weight of your boots on the earth, and the weight of your hands resting in your lap, and you realize with a quiet clarity that you have everything you need. The vastness of the West is not a lonely place when you are at peace with the silence. It is a companion that asks for nothing but your presence. The wind, when it moves, is a soft, warm sigh that carries the scent of baked dust, sun-dried wild thyme, and the lingering sweetness of the morning's clover. It brushes against your skin with a touch as light as a feather, carrying away the last remnants of the morning's toil. You feel your heartbeat slowing down, sinking deeper into your chest, matching the slow, deep pulse of the land beneath you. The horse gives a long, low sigh through its nostrils, a sound of pure, unadulterated relaxation that vibrates through the air and echoes your own internal state. Together, man and beast, you are waiting for the sun to begin its long, inevitable slide toward the west, content to stay in this golden, motionless moment for as long as the earth allows. As you look out over the sea of grass, you see the way the heat makes the air shimmer just above the ground. It looks like the world is breathing, a soft, rhythmic expansion and contraction of the horizon. You watch a hawk, a tiny dark speck in the distance, as it hangs motionless on an invisible current of warm air. It doesn't flap its wings, it simply rests on the sky, a master of the stillness. You find yourself mimicking the bird, letting your mind rest on the currents of the quiet, floating away from the memories of the ranch and the chores of the trail. The light is so bright that it seems to have a weight of its own, a golden pressure that encourages you to close your eyes. And as you do, the world becomes a tapestry of soft, warm reds and oranges behind your eyelids. You hear the pop of a seed pod in the heat, a tiny sound of life continuing its cycle in the middle of the desert. You feel the texture of the air, which has become dry and static, filled with the energy of the sun. This is the heart of the cowboys, solitude, not a lonely emptiness, but a fullness of spirit that can only be found when the noise of the world is stripped away. You think of the morning behind you, the long ride through the dew-dampened grass, the creak of the leather, and the cool shadows of the canyons. It feels like it happened in another lifetime, so complete is the transformation of the world under the midday sun. And you think of the evening ahead, the smell of the campfire, the taste of the beans and bacon, and the arrival of the cold, brilliant stars. But those things belong to the future. Right now, there is only the now. There is only the warmth of the stone against your spine, the sound of the horse's slow breath, and the infinite peace of the prairie at high noon. Let your mind drift further now. Imagine the roots of the grass reaching deep into the cool, dark soil beneath the surface, drinking in the hidden moisture of the earth. Imagine the stones cooling slowly from within, holding on to the memory of the winter's frost, even as their surfaces bake in the sun. Everything in the West is a balance of extremes, a dance of fire and ice, light and shadow. But here, in the center of the day, the balance is perfect. The light has won, and, in its victory, it has brought a stillness that passeth all understanding. Rest in this feeling of being anchored to the center of the world. Let the hum of the midday prairie be a gentle, persistent lullaby that carries you deeper and deeper into a state of restorative, dreamless calm. The heat is not your enemy. It is a warm, heavy blanket that keeps you safe. The silence is not a void. It is a song that tells the story of the earth's long, slow history. You are drifting now, floating on a sea of golden buffalo grass, beneath a sky that stretches on into infinity. As you drift further into this journey, imagine that the vast open range is beginning to give way to the gentle structures of a small frontier town. This is not a place of noise or bustle, but a quiet island of wood and stone set in the middle of a golden sea of grass. The transition is slow first. You see the distant, thin line of a white picket fence, then the weathered gray of a barn, and finally, the singular, dusty line of the main street. Arriving in a town like this is like stepping into a slower version of time itself. A place where the hours are measured by the lengthening of shadows on a wooden porch and the occasional rhythmic clack-clack of a wagon moving down the sun-baked road. You feel the change beneath your horse's hooves as the soft, muffled thud of the prairie grass turns into the firmer, hollow clump of the town's dirt street. The air here smells different. It carries the scent of seasoned pine, the dry sweetness of the general store's tobacco, and the faint, comforting aroma of baking bread drifting from a kitchen window. Everything in this town feels settled and patient. The buildings are made of thick timber and rough-hewn stone, their surfaces silvered by the sun and polished by the wind until they seem to belong to the earth just as much as the mountains do. You find a place to hitch your horse in front of the general store. The hitching rail is made of smooth, sturdy cedar, worn down by the touch of 1,000 hands and the tethering of 1,000 reins. As you dismount, your spurs give a soft, musical jingle clink that echoes in the quiet air. You take a moment to pat your horse's neck, feeling the warmth of its skin and the steady, calm rhythm of its breathing. Here, in the shelter of the town, even the animals seem to sense the invitation to rest. You step up onto the boardwalk, the wooden sidewalk that runs the length of the street. There is a specific music to walking on these boards. It is a hollow, rhythmic thump-clack that follows you, a sound that defines the pace of town life. You walk slowly, feeling the texture of the wood beneath your boots. Some boards are weathered and gray, others are stained with the red dust of the trail. But all of them speak of the slow, steady passage of feet over the years. You find a heavy wooden chair on the porch of the store and sit down, leaning back until the wood creaks in a long, satisfying sigh of greeting. From this vantage point, you watch the world go by, though the world is in no hurry to move. Across the street, a stray dog, a shaggy, golden-colored animal is stretched out in a patch of dust, its chest rising and falling in a deep, peaceful sleep. Every now and then, it gives a lazy thump of its tail against the ground, acknowledging a passing butterfly or a change in the breeze. You watch the way the heat haze rises from the center of the road, making the distant buildings shimmer like a dream. A single wagon moves past, the wooden wheels turning with a slow, rhythmic groaning clack, the horses pulling it with a steady, nodding grace. The driver gives you a slow, silent nod, a gesture of shared peace, and then the wagon disappears around the bend, leaving the street even quieter than before. The porch is a sanctuary of shadow in the middle of the bright afternoon. You feel the coolness of the shade against your skin, a sharp contrast to the golden warmth of the sun that is still baking the street just a few feet away. You lean your head back against the wall of the store and close your eyes for a moment, listening to the internal sounds of the town. From inside the store, you hear the muffled ticking of a large regulator clock, a steady, hypnotic tick-tock tick-tock that seems to synchronize with the heartbeat of the frontier. You hear the low, melodic murmur of two people talking somewhere far down the street, their voices rising and falling like the sound of a distant stream. These sounds are not distractions. They are layers of a lullaby, woven together to tell the story of a world at rest. Time begins to stretch out, becoming thin and transparent. You realize that an hour could pass, or perhaps two, and it would feel exactly the same. There is a profound freedom in this lack of urgency. You watch a spider as it slowly, methodically spins a web between two porch railings, the silk glowing like silver thread in the sunlight. You notice the way the paint on the sign across the street has faded into a soft, beautiful patina of rose and cream. You see the individual grains in the wooden post beside you, a map of the tree's long life in the mountains. In the town, you learn to look at things closely, to appreciate the beauty of the weathered, the old, and the enduring dot. As the afternoon progresses, the light begins to change, turning from a brilliant white to a rich, liquid gold. The shadows of the porch railings stretch out across the boardwalk, forming a pattern of long, dark stripes. The air begins to cool, carrying the scent of the surrounding pines and the first hint of the night's mountain chill. You feel a deep, heavy relaxation in your limbs, a sense that the town has accepted you into its quiet rhythm. You are no longer a traveler. You are a part of the stillness. You watch as the storekeeper comes out to the porch, moving with a slow, practiced ease. He doesn't say anything. He simply stands there for a moment, looking out at the horizon, his hands tucked into his apron. He shares the silence with you, a quiet companionship that requires no explanation. After a while, he begins to light the oil lamps that hang from the porch ceiling. You hear the scritch of the match, see the tiny orange flame, and then the soft, warm glow of the wick as it catches. The light is amber and flickering, casting long, dancing shadows against the wood. It is a human light, a small, defiant spark of warmth in the face of the encroaching dark. Now, as the sun begins to dip below the edge of the world, painting the sky in shades of deep violet and bruised orange, you feel the town settling into its evening rest. The shops are closing their doors with soft, final clicks. The horses in the livery stable are being fed, the sound of their munching a steady, peaceful rhythm in the twilight. You stand up from your chair, your joints feeling loose and heavy, and you walk back to your horse. The jingle of your spurs is softer now, muffled by the coming of the night, as you lead your horse out of town. Heading back toward the open range, you look back one last time. The small town is now a cluster of warm yellow lights against the vast, dark silhouette of the hills. It looks like a constellation that has fallen to earth, a place of safety and quiet in the middle of the infinite. You carry the peace of the wooden porch with you, the memory of the ticking clock and the rhythmic boardwalk guiding you back into the great, silent dark. Rest now, as the image of the quiet street fades into the starlight. The town is sleeping. The boards are still. The shadows have grown long and joined together to form the night. You are moving back into the heart of the wilderness, but the warmth of the town remains in your heart, a steady, flickering flame that promises rest and peace. Drift now into the slow, rhythmic heartbeat of the West, where time is an endless river and every porch is a place to find your soul. As the long golden reach of the afternoon finally dissolves into the soft, velvet embrace of the twilight, the world of the high plains undergoes a quiet transformation. The sky above you is no longer a bright, translucent blue, but a deepening tapestry of bruised plum, indigo, and a pale, shimmering silver where the last of the sun's memory lingers on the horizon. The air begins to change, losing the dry, heavy heat of the day and replacing it with a crisp, mountain-born coolness that makes the skin tingle and the lungs feel clear. This is the time of the gathering, a slow and rhythmic return to the center of the camp, where the flicker of a fire becomes the small, warm heart of the universe. Imagine yourself walking toward the circle of light. Your boots make a soft, muffled crunch on the dry buffalo grass, a sound that is punctuated by the occasional clink of your spurs, a delicate, musical jingle that sounds like tiny bells in the immense silence of the evening. The camp is set in a shallow draw, sheltered from the rising night wind by a cluster of ancient, twisted cottonwood trees, whose leaves are beginning to rustle with a sound like falling rain. You see the orange glow of the fire from a distance, a small, defiant spark of human presence in a landscape that stretches out forever into the dark. Building the evening fire is a ritual performed with a deep, wordless reverence. You watch as the small twigs of dried cedar are gathered, their bark smelling of old mountains and resin. There is the scritch of a match, a tiny burst of phosphorus light, and then the first hungry lick of a flame catching the wood. The fire doesn't roar. It grows with a steady, rhythmic crackle and pop, sending a thin, spiraling ribbon of blue-gray smoke up toward the first few stars. The scent of the wood smoke is perhaps the most comforting smell in the world. It is the smell of home, of safety, and of a day's work finally coming to an end. It fills the air with a warm, dry fragrance that seems to wrap around you, like a heavy wool blanket. Now, the focus shifts to the evening meal, a simple and repetitive process that brings a profound sense of satisfaction. The chuck wagon stands nearby, its white canvas top glowing like a large, grounded cloud in the firelight. You hear the clink-clank of the heavy cast-iron Dutch ovens being moved onto the coals. There is no hurry in this cooking. It is a slow infusion of heat and flavor. You smell the salt pork as it begins to sizzle, a rich, savory aroma that mingles with the sweetness of the wood smoke. Then comes the smell of the sourdough biscuits, the dough rising slowly in the iron pot until the tops are golden brown and the edges are crisp. When the meal is served, you take your tin plate and find a place to sit on a fallen log or a smooth, sun-warmed stone. The plate is heavy and cool in your hands, but the food is steaming, a direct gift of the fire. You eat slowly, savoring the simple, honest textures, the creaminess of the beans, the saltiness of the meat, and the warm, soft heart of the biscuit. Every bite is a meditation. You listen to the sounds of the other men eating around you, the soft clatter of a spoon against a tin cup, the rhythmic chew, and the deep, satisfied sighs that follow a long day in the saddle. In this circle of light, there are no titles or hierarchies. There is only the shared human need for warmth and nourishment. As the meal concludes, the coffee hour begins. The large blue speckled pot sits on the edge of the embers, the coffee inside dark as the midnight sky and just as deep. You hold the tin cup in both hands, letting the heat seep into your palms, chasing away the last of the day's fatigue. The steam rises into your face, carrying a bitter, earthy scent that awakens the senses, even as it relaxes the mind. You sip it slowly, feeling the warmth travel all the way down to your toes. This is the hour of the stories. In the Old West, storytelling is not a performance. It is a way of weaving the silence together. The voices are kept low and soft, out of respect for the vastness of the night that surrounds the camp. One man might speak of a horse he once knew, a steady, clever bay that could find its way home through a blizzard. Another might tell a story of a hidden valley he saw once, years ago, where the grass was as tall as a man's waist and the water was as clear as glass. These are not tales of action or drama, but reflections on the beauty and the mystery of the land. The voices rise and fall in a gentle, hypnotic cadence, blending with the crackle of the fire and the distant hoo-hoo of an owl in the cottonwoods. You find yourself watching the faces of the men in the flickering light, the deep lines around their eyes, the weathered texture of their skin, and the way their expressions soften as they listen. There is a profound human comfort in this shared oral history. It makes the world feel smaller, more intimate, and less lonely. You are part of a long line of travelers who have sat around fires just like this one, sharing the same stories under the same eternal stars. As the stories fade, a comfortable silence settles over the camp. It is a full, rich silence, not an empty one. You look up, away from the fire, and see that the sky has become a brilliant, crowded masterpiece of light. The Milky Way stretches across the dome of the night like a river of silver dust, a luminous path that seems to lead to the very edge of creation. The stars here do not just twinkle. They pulse with a steady, white light, so bright that they cast faint, ghostly shadows on the ground. You feel a sense of immense perspective, realization of how small you are in the face of the infinite, and yet, how perfectly you fit into this specific moment in time. The fire is beginning to burn down now, the bright yellow flames giving way to a bed of glowing, translucent red coals. The heat is softer now, a gentle radiation that encourages a deep, heavy drowsiness. You hear the horses nearby, their rhythmic munching of the grass, a steady, peaceful background noise. Occasionally, one of them will blow a soft sigh through its nostrils, a sound of pure contentment that echoes your own. It is time to prepare for sleep. You walk away from the fire's edge to where your bedroll is laid out on the earth. The ground has held on to some of the sun's warmth from the day, and as you lie down, You feel that warmth rising up to meet you through the canvas. You pull your heavy wool blankets up to your chin, feeling the weight and the texture of the fabric against your skin. The air is cold on your face, but your body is encased in a cocoon of warmth. As you lie there, looking up at the rotating stars, you feel the world slowing down to its most basic elements. There is the wind, which has become a soft, rhythmic whoosh in the tops of the trees. There is the smell of the dying fire, a faint, sweet ghost of cedar smoke. And there is the immense, protective silence of the plains. Your breathing slows, matching the slow, deep pulse of the earth beneath you. The stories you heard tonight drift through your mind like gentle shadows, blending with the rhythm of the night. You are drifting now, floating on a sea of darkness, guided by the memory of the fire and the soft voices of your companions. The camp is still. The fire is a low red heartbeat. The stars are watching over you. You are safe, you are warm, and you are part of the great, quiet history of the West. Rest now, in the deep, restorative peace of the evening. The morning will come in its own time, but for now, there is only the fire, the stars, and the beautiful, endless quiet. The fire has now settled into a low, pulsing glow. A bed of deep orange jewels, tucked beneath a soft blanket of silver-gray ash. The voices of the camp have drifted away, replaced by the immense, velvet silence of the high plains at midnight. Now, it is time for you to find your own place in the stillness. You walk a short distance away from the dying embers, moving toward where your bedroll is laid out on the edge of the camp. The grass beneath your boots is cool and damp with the first touch of the night dew, a soft brushing sound that follows you through the dark. As you reach your bed, you pause for a moment, standing still beneath the infinite dome of the sky, feeling the true scale of the world around you. The night air is crisp and clean, carrying the sharp, cold scent of the distant mountains and the dry herbal fragrance of the sagebrush that surrounds the camp. There is no artificial light here, nothing to dim the brilliance of the heavens. As you look up, the sky does not seem flat, but deep and endless, transparent ocean of indigo and black. The stars are so bright and so numerous that they seem to crowd the sky, pulsing with a steady, white light that feels almost close enough to touch. You see the Milky Way, a luminous, swirling river of silver dust that arches from one horizon to the other, a path of light that has guided travelers and dreamers for thousands of years. In this moment, the vastness of the universe does not feel overwhelming. It feels like a protective canopy, a grand and silent witness to your rest. You sit down on the edge of your bedroll, the heavy canvas rustling softly under your weight. This is your sugan, your home on the trail. A simple arrangement of quilts and blankets wrapped in a thick, waterproof canvas shell. You pull off your boots, feeling the sudden, cooling relief of the night air on your feet. You lay your hat aside, placing it carefully where it won't be crushed. And then you slide into the deep, warm envelope of the blankets. The transition is wonderful from the biting chill of the night air into the lingering warmth that the wool has held onto since the day. The blankets are heavy and thick, made of honest, rough-woven wool that smells faintly of wood smoke and sun-dried grass. As you pull them up to your chin, you feel the solid, grounding weight of the canvas pressing down on you. It is a comforting pressure, like a firm, steady hand resting on your shoulder, telling you that you are safe. The ground beneath you is hard, but you have found a spot where the earth is level and the grass is thick. You feel the contours of the land through the bedding, a physical connection to the ancient soil that supports you. You are not sleeping on the earth so much as you are sleeping with it, part of its slow nocturnal rhythm. Close your eyes now, and let your other senses take over. Listen to the night. It is never truly silent, but the sounds it makes are all peaceful, all part of a long, slow lullaby. You hear the rhythmic breathing of your horse, who is hobbled nearby. It is a deep, resonant sound, slow in, and a long, soft out, that acts as a metronome for your own breathing. You hear the occasional, gentle thud of a hoof against the earth, a sound of solid presence in the dark. Somewhere in the distance, far beyond the edges of the camp, you hear the lonely, melodic yippee-pow of a coyote. It is a thin, silver sound that rises and falls, a song of the wilderness that only adds to the sense of peace. It reminds you that you are a guest in a wide, beautiful world that is perfectly at home with itself. The wind has become a soft, persistent whisper. It moves through the tall stalks of the buffalo grass with a sound like the sighing of the sea, a constant hush-hush that never stops. It carries the scent of the open range into your blankets, the smell of dry earth, cold stone, and the sweetness of the curing hay. As the wind brushes over your face, it feels like a cool, silken thread, a gentle touch that smooths away the last of the day's thoughts. You find yourself focusing on the rhythm of your own breath, watching it rise in tiny, pale clouds of steam before it vanishes into the starlight. Your thoughts begin to drift, becoming slow and hazy like the smoke of the evening fire. You think of the miles you have traveled today, the long stretches of golden grass, the shimmering heat of the noon, and the slow, swaying movement of the horse. It all feels like a dream now, a series of beautiful images that are folding themselves away for the night. There is no tomorrow to worry about, and no yesterday to carry. There is only the now, the warmth of the wool, the weight of the canvas, and the infinite, starlit silence. The stars above you seem to be moving in a slow, majestic dance. If you watch one long enough, you can almost feel the earth turning, a soft, rotating motion that carries you through the dark. You are a passenger on a great silent ship of grass and stone, sailing through a sea of stars. You feel a deep sense of belonging, a realization that you are exactly where you are meant to be. The hardship of the trail, the dust, and the long hours are all small prices to pay for this moment of perfect clarity and rest. The night grows deeper, and the cold becomes more profound, but inside your cocoon of canvas, you are perfectly preserved. You feel your muscles letting go, one by one. Your shoulders sink into the earth. Your hands become heavy and still. Your mind becomes a quiet pool of water, reflecting nothing but the dark. The world is so vast, so incredibly wide, and yet your world has shrunk to the size of this bedroll, a small, warm island of safety in the middle of the great quiet. Imagine the cattle nearby, thousands of them, all lying down in the grass, their heavy bodies sighing as they settle into the earth. Imagine the other riders, distant shadows on the rim of the camp, watching the stars and humming soft tunes to keep the herd at peace. You are all part of the same story, a shared experience of endurance and quiet beauty. The night is a blanket that covers you all, a time of healing and restoration before the sun begins its long climb once again. Let your mind float away now. Imagine you are becoming as light as the wood smoke, rising up toward the Milky Way, drifting among the silver clouds of stars. The ground is far below, the grass is a dark ocean, and you are part of the infinite. There is no noise, no hurry, and no fear. There is only the wind, the stars, and the beautiful, restorative darkness of the open range. The fire is gone, the stars are bright, the world is at rest. You are drifting now, deeper and deeper into the velvet heart of the night. Sleep is coming to you like a slow-moving river, a gentle current that pulls you away from the shore and into the deep, peaceful center of the stream. Let yourself go, let the night carry you. You are home in the west, and the stars are watching over you. Rest now, the horizon is silent, the prairie is still, and you are perfectly, beautifully at sleep. To live as a cowboy is to live in a slow, constant dialogue with the sky and the soil. A conversation that changes its tone with the turning of the months, but never loses its essential, rhythmic peace. As you settle into this stage of our journey, imagine that you are not just a traveler passing through a landscape, but a part of the landscape itself. You are like the ancient rimrock, or the deep-rooted buffalo grass, enduring through the cycles of the sun and the moon. watching the world transform around you in a beautiful, endless loop of time. Out here, the seasons are not just changes in temperature. They are different movements in a grand, quiet symphony, and your life is the steady beat that keeps time with the heavy, slow heart of the earth. Imagine first the arrival of spring on the high plains. It begins with a sound that is so subtle you can only hear it in the deepest part of the night, the soft, musical tinkle of melting snow. The white drifts that have clung to the north side of the draws for months begin to recede, exposing the dark, rich soil beneath. The air carries a new scent, a fragrance that is both sharp and sweet, the smell of damp earth waking up after a long frozen sleep. You watch as the first hints of green begin to blush across the hills, a pale, delicate mist of new grass that seems to change the very light of the world. The cattle feel it too. They lift their heads from the dry hay, their nostrils twitching as they catch the scent of the first wild clover. The work is still slow, but there is a new softness to it, a feeling of gentle unfolding that makes every mile in the saddle feel like a promise being slowly kept. The spring rains come not as a storm, but as a long gray blessing that lasts for days. You sit beneath the shelter of a canyon wall or a wide-brimmed hat and watch the curtains of water as they drift across the horizon like ghostly dancers. The sound of the rain on the canvas is a rhythmic, hypnotic patter-patter, a liquid lullaby that washes away the dust of the winter. When the sun finally breaks through the clouds, the world is reborn in shades of emerald and sapphire, and the air is so clear it feels as though you could reach out and touch the snow-capped peaks of the mountains 100 miles away. You find yourself riding through fields of wildflowers, lupin, Indian paintbrush, and desert primrose, their colors so vibrant they look like a carpet of fallen jewels resting on the green silk of the prairie. As the year turns toward summer, the world becomes a study in gold and heavy, radiant heat. The days stretch out, becoming long and languid, the sun lingering on the horizon until nearly midnight, as if it is reluctant to leave the beauty of the range. The grass turns from green to a rich sun-baked amber, and the wind becomes a warm, steady sigh that carries the scent of wild, dry hay and sun-warmed pine. You move with a deliberate slowness now, conserving your energy and the strength of your horse. The heat is a physical presence, a heavy, golden blanket that encourages a state of constant, peaceful meditation. You watch the thunderheads build in the afternoon, great white towers of clouds that look like marble palaces in the sky. They bring a brief cooling shadow, and the distant, rolling mumble of thunder, a sound that is more like a deep, earthborn sigh than a threat. Then comes autumn, the season of the golden hour. The light changes, becoming thick and liquid, like honey being poured over the hills. The cottonwood trees along the creek beds turn to a brilliant, shimmering yellow, their leaves clacking softly in the breeze like thousands of tiny golden coins striking one another. The air begins to sharpen, carrying the first hint of frost in the early mornings, a crispness that makes the wood smoke from the campfire smell even sweeter. This is a time of gathering and preparation, a slow winding down of the year's energy. You ride through a landscape that feels as though it is being painted in shades of copper, bronze, and deep, rusted red. There is a profound sense of ripeness in the air, a feeling that the earth has done its work and is now ready for a long, well-earned rest. Finally, the winter settles over the west, bringing with it the most profound silence of all. It begins with a sky, the color of lead, and a wind that carries the scent of iron and ice. Then, the snow arrives not in a flurry, but in a slow, steady descent of large, soft flakes that fall without a single sound. Within hours, the world is transformed into a study in white and gray. The sharp edges of the hills are softened, the fences become lines of silver lace, and the vastness of the plains feels even more immense in its crystalline purity. The work changes now. It becomes a routine of endurance and quiet care. You move the cattle to the sheltered valleys, their heavy winter coats thick and shaggy against the cold. The silence of a snowy day on the ranch is a holy thing. You sit by the stone fireplace, the only sound being the hiss and crackle of the cedar logs and the rhythmic ticking of a clock. Outside, the world is muffled, as if it has been wrapped in a thick, white wool quilt. You spend the short days mending harness or greasing your leather boots by the light of the fire, your hands moving with a slow, meditative rhythm. There is a deep, human satisfaction in this season of waiting, a realization that the stillness of winter is necessary for the life of the spring to follow. You realize, as you watch the snow fall or the sun rise, that the land has a memory. It remembers the floods and the droughts, the fires and the frosts, and through it all, it remains silent and steady. You, too, are becoming part of that memory. Your footprints in the dust, your shadow on the grass, and the warmth of your breath in the winter air, they are all small, beautiful notes in the long song of the West. You find peace in this permanence. The world does not need you to be loud. It only asks you to be present now. As you continue to rest, let the rhythm of the seasons be your guide. Feel the slow, turning movement of the earth as it travels through the stars. Imagine the grass beneath the snow, the seeds waiting for the rain, and the mountains standing eternal against the sky. You are a part of this great, quiet machine, a soul at rest in the heart of a perfect system. The wind is a whisper that speaks of all the years that have come before. The light is a memory of all the suns that have ever risen. And the silence, the vast, protective silence of the Old West, is a home that will always welcome you. Your journey through the seasons is just one part of the story, and as the wheel of the year turns, you find yourself sinking deeper into the peace of the land. Rest your mind in the cool of the winter and the warmth of the summer. Let the change of the weather be a lullaby that carries you further into sleep. The seasons will continue their dance, and you will be here, rhythmic and still, in the heart of the great quiet. In the silence of the high plains, there is a specific kind of solitude that does not feel like loneliness, but rather like a deep and meaningful fullness. As you settle into your rest tonight, imagine that you are riding alone through a part of the country where no fence has ever been stretched and no road has ever been cut. You are a tiny speck of life moving across a giant, golden bowl of earth and for hundreds of miles in every direction. There is nothing but the wind, the grass, and the infinite sky. This is the true meaning of freedom, the ability to look at the horizon and know that you could ride in any direction for as many days as you choose, and the world would still be yours to discover. Silent and undisturbed, you feel the weight of this solitude as a gentle, comforting pressure. It is the absence of human noise, the absence of expectation, and the absence of time. Out here, you are not defined by a name or a job or a history. You are simply a living soul, moving in harmony with the elements. You listen to the sound of your own heartbeat, a steady, internal rhythm that begins to synchronize with the thump-thump of your horse's hooves on the sun-baked soil. The world is so quiet that you can hear the rustle of your own leather chaps against the saddle, and the soft, rhythmic clink of the bit as the horse tosses its head. These small, intimate sounds are the only things that anchor you to the physical world, and they feel like a private conversation between you and the wilderness. The landscape around you is a masterpiece of minimalism. There is the gold of the buffalo grass, the silver gray of the sagebrush, and the deep, endless blue of the sky. As you ride, you watch the way the light play across the rolling hills, creating shadows that move like slow, dark waves. There are no trees here to break the view, only the occasional, weathered outcropping of rimrock that stands like a silent sentinel against the wind. You find yourself staring at the horizon for hours, mesmerized by the way it never seems to get any closer. It is a shimmering liquid line where the earth and the heavens meet, a boundary that is always moving, always promising more space and more silence. There is a profound sense of lightness that comes with this kind of freedom. You carry everything you need on the back of your horse, your bedroll, your canteen, a few simple tools, and enough food for the trail. You are unburdened by the clutter of the world. Your mind, too, begins to feel unburdened. The worries that seemed so important in the town or back at the ranch begin to evaporate in the vastness of the plains, disappearing like morning mist in the heat of the sun. You find yourself thinking about nothing at all, simply existing in a state of pure, wordless observation. You watch the way a hawk circles in the thermals, its wings spread wide and motionless, a perfect emblem of the freedom you feel in your own heart. Your horse, your silent companion, feels this freedom too. You notice the way it moves with a loose, easy grace, its ears twitching back and forth as it listens to the secrets of the wind. There is no need for you to guide it with a heavy hand. The horse knows the way, and it knows the rhythm of the trail. You are two souls moving as one, a shared consciousness that understands the value of the quiet. Occasionally, you lean forward and run your hand along the horse's neck, feeling the warmth of its skin and the steady, powerful ripple of its muscles. This simple touch is enough to remind you that you are not truly alone, even in the middle of 1,000 miles of empty space. Midday brings a stillness that is almost sacred. You find a shallow draw where a small spring trickles out from beneath a ledge of stone, creating a tiny, hidden oasis of green in the middle of the amber plains. You dismount and let the horse drink, the sound of the water lapping and gulping a rhythmic, cooling melody in the heat. You sit on the cool, damp earth near the spring, feeling the moisture seep through your denim. Here, in the shade of the ledge, the air is still and sweet, smelling of moss and cold stone. You close your eyes and listen to the silence of the solitude. It is a deep, resonant hum, a vibration that comes from the very bones of the earth. You feel as though you are sitting in the heart of a great, ancient cathedral, one that was built by the wind and the rain, long before humans ever walked the earth. In this solitude, you discover a new kind of strength. It is a quiet, internal resilience that comes from knowing you can take care of yourself, and that you can find peace in your own company. You realize that the vastness is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. It is a mirror that reflects the quietest parts of your soul. You spend the afternoon simply watching the clouds drift by, their white, billowy shapes forming mountains and oceans in the sky. You notice the way the light changes as the sun begins its long, slow descent, turning the grass from gold to copper and the sky from turquoise to a deep, glowing violet. The freedom of the West is not just about the distance you can travel, but about the time you are allowed to keep. There is no one to tell you when to start or when to stop. You can linger by the spring for as long as you like, or you can ride until the stars come out. The only clock is the movement of the sun and the rising of the moon. You find a deep comfort in this lack of schedule. It allows you to notice the smallest things, the way a beetle struggles over a blade of grass, the way the wind makes a whistling sound through the dry seed pods of the yucca plants, or the way your own shadow grows long and thin as the day wanes. As the evening begins to settle over the range, the solitude becomes even more profound. The world turns to shades of indigo and charcoal, and the first few stars begin to pulse in the darkening dome above. You find a place to make your camp, a small, flat spot on the lee side of a hill, where the wind is a soft whisper rather than a cold bite. You don't build a large fire, just a small flickering flame to warm your coffee. The light of the fire is a tiny amber spark in the middle of an ocean of darkness, a small human lighthouse in the infinite. You lie down in your bedroll, looking up at the rotating stars. The sense of freedom you felt during the day is now replaced by a sense of deep, cosmic belonging. You are a part of the night, a part of the stars, and a part of the vast, sleeping earth. The solitude is no longer a physical thing. It is a state of grace. You feel your breathing slow down, matching the slow, deep sigh of the wind as it moves across the hills. Your mind is clear, your body is heavy, and your spirit is at peace. Tomorrow, the horizon will still be there, waiting for you to follow it. The freedom will still be there, a wide-open promise of another day without walls. But for now, you are content to be exactly where you are, a single, quiet soul, resting in the heart of a vast and beautiful world. Rest now, in the arms of the great quiet. Let the solitude be your blanket, and the freedom be your dream. You are safe, you are free, and you are home in the endless silence of the West. As you settle deeper into the warmth of your blankets, let your mind drift to the concept of endurance, not the kind of endurance that breaks a person, but the kind that polishes them, like a river stone worn smooth by the constant, gentle passage of water over many years. In the life of the open range, hardship is not an event, it is an environment. It is a slow, gray mist that settles over the days, requiring a steady heart and a patient spirit. Tonight, we are going to explore the quiet beauty of that persistence, the way the body and the soul learn to adapt to the wind, the cold, and the long, silent stretches of the trail. Imagine, first, the specific cold of a high plains morning in the late autumn. Long before the sun has even considered lifting its golden head above the horizon, the world is encased in a thin, crystalline skin of frost. You wake up in your bedroll, and the first thing you feel is the sharp, biting air against the small patch of skin exposed on your cheeks. You lie perfectly still for a long time, watching your own breath rise in thick white clouds of steam, drifting upward toward the fading stars. The world is so silent it feels as though the air itself has frozen into a solid, transparent block of ice. Every movement you make is a slow negotiation with the cold. You feel the stiffness in your joints, a dull, rhythmic ache in your lower back and shoulders that has become a familiar companion over the years. This stiffness is not a pain to be feared, but an honest record of the miles you have traveled and the work you have done. It is the signature of the trail, written into your very bones. You reach out from the warmth of the wool to find your boots. The leather is cold, stiff, and unyielding, having hardened in the night air. You have to work the leather with your hands, feeling the grain in the oil, slowly coaxing it back to life before you can slide your feet inside. The metal buckles of your spurs feel like slivers of ice against your fingers, a sharp, stinging reminder of the reality of the wilderness. But as you move, you don't hurry. You understand that the cold cannot be rushed. You build a tiny, intentional fire using the driest cedar twigs you can find. You watch the way the first flame, a tiny, flickering orange spark, struggles against the blue light of the dawn. You hold your hands over that small warmth, watching the way the blood begins to return to your knuckles, turning the skin from a pale gray to a healthy, glowing rose. This is the first quiet victory of the day. It is the gentle endurance of the firemaker, the person who knows that even the smallest light is enough to hold back the vastness of the winter. Think now of the long, gray days when the rain arrives, not as a sudden, dramatic storm, but as a persistent, soaking drizzle that seems to have no beginning and no end. The sky becomes a heavy, seamless dome of charcoal silk, and the horizon disappears behind a soft, blurring veil of mist. In this world, everything becomes a study in texture and dampness. You wear your yellow oilskin slicker, a heavy, stiff garment that smells of linseed oil and old timber. As you ride, you hear the constant, rhythmic drip-drip of the water falling from the wide brim of your hat, a liquid metronome that marks the passage of the hours. The rain doesn't fall. It drifts, clinging to the wool of your scarf and the leather of your reins, until everything you touch is cool and saturated. Your horse moves with a slow, deliberate effort, its hooves making a rhythmic squelch thud as they sink into the soft, yielding mud of the trail. You feel the dampness creeping into the edges of your collar and the tops of your boots, a slow invasion of the cold. But instead of frustration, you feel a strange, profound sense of peace. You have stopped fighting the weather. You have accepted the rain as a part of the day's journey, a necessary element in the life of the grass and the cattle. You find yourself noticing the way the moisture brings out the hidden colors of the landscape, how the sagebrush turns a deep, vibrant silver, and the red earth becomes the color of crushed garnets. The hardship of the rain is a cleansing process, a slow-motion washing of the world that forces you to slow down, to breathe, and to exist entirely in the present moment. You learn to find comfort in the steady warmth of the horse's body beneath the saddle, a living furnace that keeps the center of your world dry even as the edges are soaked. There is a quiet hardship, too, in the long stretches of thirst on a midsummer afternoon. Imagine the dust of the trelifine, alkaline powder that rises in golden clouds with every step of the herd. It coats your throat, it settles in the creases of your eyes, and it turns the taste of the air into something dry and metallic. Your canteen, which felt so heavy and full in the morning, now hangs light and hollow from your saddle horn. The sun is a steady, radiating weight on the back of your neck, and the air shimmers with a heat that makes the distant mesas look like they are floating on a sea of mercury. In this dryness, your mind begins to wander, drifting toward the memory of cold mountain streams and the sound of water rushing over smooth stones. But in this quiet suffering, you discover a deep and essential truth about the world, the value of simplicity. When you finally reach a windmill atoll, skeletal structure standing lonely against the blue, you hear the rhythmic clankling clank of the vanes turning in the wind, a mechanical song of salvation. You watch the water spill from the pipe into the wooden tank, a clear, splashing ribbon of life. The first sip is not just a drink. It is a profound, spiritual experience. You feel the coldness travel through your chest and into your limbs, a blessing of the earth that reminds you that you are part of a cycle of need and provision. The endurance of the thirst is what makes the waters sweet. Without the shadow of the hardship, the light of the relief would have no meaning. You sit by the tank for a long time, watching the way the moss grows on the wet wood, feeling a deep, heavy gratitude for the simple fact of being alive. As the weeks and months of the trail turn into years, you notice that your body has begun to wear smooth. The sharp aches of your youth have been replaced by a durable, leather-like strength. Your hands are no longer soft. They are calloused and weathered, the skin mapped with the stories of ropes, rains, and winter winds. You feel a quiet pride in this physical transformation. You are becoming a person who can sit in a wooden saddle for 14 hours, moving at a walk or a slow trot, and still find the energy to look up at the evening star with a sense of wonder. This is the quiet harvest of the frontier of resilience that isn't about being tough in a loud way, but about being steady in a quiet way. You are like the cedar fence posts that hold up against the blizzards, becoming more beautiful as you turn gray and weathered. Solitude, too, is a quiet hardship that you learn to carry with the same grace as your saddle. There are days, perhaps weeks, when the only voice you hear is your own, and the only audience for your thoughts is the wide, indifferent sky. At first, the silence feels like an empty space, a void that needs to be filled. But as you endure the solitude, it begins to feel like a presence. You learn to talk to your horse in a low, humming tone, sharing the secrets of the trail. You learn to listen to the language of the wind, the way it whistles through the dry yucca stalks or sighs through the buffalo grass. You discover that you are enough. The vastness of the West does not swallow you. It holds you in a state of perfect, uninterrupted reflection. You find that the endurance of the soul is a slow-growing thing, like the roots of a mesquite tree that reach down 100 feet to find the hidden water in the late evening. When the work is finally done, and you sit by the dying fire, you feel the good tired. It is a heavy, satisfied weight in your limbs, a fatigue that comes from a day spent in honest harmony with the physical world. You look at the orange embers and you realize that you have met every challenge the day had to offer. You have met the cold, the rain, the dust, and the silence, and you have come through the other side with your peace intact. You haven't conquered the wilderness, no one ever does, but you have learned to live within it. You have learned the art of gentle endurance, Imagine the world outside your blankets now. As the night reaches its deepest point, the frost is forming again on the leather of your saddle. The long shadows of the mountains are reaching out across the plains, and the stars are pulsing with a cold, brilliant light. You are safe within your cocoon of wool and canvas, a small, warm harbor in the middle of the infinite. Your breathing is slow and rhythmic, matching the ancient, tectonic pulse of the land that has endured for millions of years before you and will endure for millions of years after. You are drifting now, floating on a sea of quiet satisfaction. The endurance of the day has earned you the deep, restorative rest of the night. There is no hurry, no worry, and no noise. There is only the wind, the dark, and the beautiful, steady peace of a soul that knows how to wait. You are a part of the great quiet. You are a part of the history of the horizon. Back rest now. The trail is still. The work is done, and you are perfectly, beautifully at rest in the heart of the great, quiet West. As the sun begins its slow, amber descent toward the jagged teeth of the western mountains, imagine yourself sitting on the weathered wooden porch of an old line shack, or perhaps leaning against the silvered rails of a corral that has stood for 40 years. This is the hour of reflection, a time when the world feels as though it is turning to gold, and the long, wandering years of a life spent in the saddle begin to settle into a deep and quiet peace. Tonight, we are going to walk through the world of the aging cowboy, a world where the body moves a little slower, the memories grow a little softer, and the vast, open range begins to change its face as the new world slowly encroaches upon the old. In this state of rest, feel the physical history of your own body. There is a profound comfort in the way an old cowboy carries the years. You feel the familiar, rhythmic ache in your hands, the hands that have gripped 10,000 lariats, held the reins through 100 blizzards, and felt the warm, coarse hair of countless horses. Your knuckles are a bit larger now, weathered like the roots of an old oak tree, but they have a steady, reliable strength. You look at the palms of your hands, the skin mapped with 1,000 tiny lines, and you realize that your history is written right there in the flesh. It is a history of honest work, of quiet endurance, and of a life lived entirely in the open air. There is no bitterness in the stiffness of your joints. It is simply the ticking of a clock that has kept perfect time with the seasons. Listen to the changing music of the land. For many years, the only sounds were the wind in the grass, the lowing of the herd, and the rhythmic creak of your own leather gear. But now, as you sit in the deepening twilight, you hear a new sound drifting from far across the valley, the distant, haunting whistle of a steam locomotive. It is a long, low hoo-hoo-woo-hoo that carries over the hills like the cry of a strange iron bird. To some, it sounds like the end of an era, but to you, sitting in the stillness, it is just another layer of the world's unfolding story. You watch the thin white plume of smoke rising against the purple horizon, a tiny signal of the world moving a little faster, while you choose to stay exactly where you are, rooted in the slow, rhythmic peace of the earth. You notice the silver threads that have begun to appear across the once limitless sea of grass. These are the wire fences, the thin lines of steel that have started to divide the range into smaller, quieter pieces. In the old days, you could ride for a month and never see a post or a rail. But now the world is being organized, sectioned off like a great green quilt. You find a strange, quiet beauty in the way the morning dew hangs from the barbed wire, turning the steel into a string of liquid diamonds. The fences don't feel like a cage. They feel like a reminder of the vastness that still remains. You know that no matter how many wires are stretched, the wind will still blow through them, the grass will still grow beneath them, and the sky will always be too big for any fence to hold. There is a deep comfort in the things that remain unchanged. You look up at the mountains, those ancient, blue-gray giants that frame your world. They don't care about the railroads or the fences. They remain exactly as they were when you were a young boy first swinging into a saddle. Their peaks are still capped with the same eternal snow, and their canyons still hold the same deep, violet shadows. You find a sense of permanence in their presence. They are the anchors of your soul, a reminder that while the valleys may change and the towns may grow, the heart of the West is made of stone and stars, and it will endure forever. Your gear, too, has aged with you, becoming a collection of old friends. Your saddle is no longer the bright, stiff leather it once was. It has turned to a deep, dark mahogany, softened by decades of use, until it feels like a part of your own body. You run your hand over the seat, feeling the smooth, worn surface that has been polished by 1,000 days of riding. It smells of old oil, sun-dried dust, and the memory of mountain rain. Your boots, too, are mapped with the creases of your life, the leather molded perfectly to the shape of your feet. There is a profound sense of ease in these things, a lack of friction that only comes with time and shared experience. You realize that you don't need the new or the bright. You find your peace in the familiar and the broken in. The memories of your youth drift through your mind now, not as sharp or painful longings, but as a soft focus painting. You remember the great cattle drives, the ocean of hides moving across the plains, and the nights spent singing to the herd beneath a moon so bright you could read a letter by it. These memories are like the embers of a fire. They no longer roar, but they give off a steady, radiating warmth that keeps the center of your heart comfortable. You think of the friends who have ridden off into their own horizons, and you feel their presence in the silence. You aren't lonely. You are surrounded by a long, quiet lineage of spirits who have all shared the same wind and the same dust. As the evening air turns cool and the scent of sagebrush rises from the cooling earth, you feel a deep, heavy relaxation. The world of changing times is a world you can watch from the porch with a gentle smile. You have done your miles. You have stood your watches. Now, your task is simply to be the memory keeper of the land. You are the bridge between the wild, open past and the settled, quiet future. You find a great freedom in this role. You are no longer hurried by the needs of the herd or the demands of the trail. You are allowed to sit, to breathe, and to watch the light change. Imagine the sound of the world settling for the night. You hear the clink of a gate being closed, the soft thump of a horse being fed in the barn, and the rhythmic rocking of your chair on the wooden boards. These are the sounds of a life that has found its home. The quiet hardship of your younger years has been transformed into a gentle wisdom. You know that the sun will rise tomorrow, whether the world is fenced or free, and you know that the grass will always find a way to grow now. As the stars begin to pulse in the deepening indigo above, let the feeling of peaceful passage carry you toward sleep. Feel the heavy, satisfied weight of your limbs. You are like an old river that has reached the wide, calm delta. The movement is slower now, the water is deeper, and the journey is almost home. The modern world may be moving faster, but here, on the edge of the range, time has slowed down to a crawl. Just for you, your breathing is slow and steady, matching the ancient, tectonic pulse of the mountains. You are drifting now, floating on a sea of golden memories and starlit silence. The fences are invisible in the dark. The railroad is a distant, forgotten echo. There is only you, the horse breathing in the corral, and the infinite, protective shadow of the night. Rest now, old traveler. The range is quiet. The history is written, and you are perfectly, beautifully at home in the heart of the great. Enduring West. Sleep is coming to you like a soft, velvet blanket, pulling you away from the changing times and into the timeless dark. You are safe, you are honored, and you are at peace. As you settle deeper into the cool, quiet embrace of the night, imagine that you are standing on a high, grassy ridge at the exact moment when the sun has dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky of fading gold and deepening violet. This is the hour of the slow fade, a time when the world is caught between what it was and what it is becoming. Tonight, we are going to drift through the transition of the Old West, not as a sudden end or a loud conflict, but as a gentle, rhythmic softening of the frontier into something more settled, more quiet, and more permanent. It is the sunset of an era, and like all sunsets, it is beautiful, patient, and filled with a lingering, radiant peace. You feel the change first in the very air of the plains. For so many years, the air was filled only with the scent of sun-baked earth and the wild, sharp fragrance of the sage. But now, as you sit on your horse in the stillness, you catch a new scent drifting on the western breeze, the faint, distant smell of coal smoke and steam. It is a thin, gray memory of the world beyond the horizon, a signal that the iron horse is moving across the land. You watch the far-off line of the railroad as it cuts a straight, purposeful path through the rolling hills. The tracks look like silver ribbons in the twilight, reflecting the last of the light. You listen to the sound of the train, a low, rhythmic thrum-thrum that vibrates through the soles of your boots. It is a steady, mechanical heartbeat that joins the older, more ancient heartbeat of the wind and the grass. You don't feel a sense of loss. You feel a sense of witnessing a great, slow movement of history, as natural as the turning of the leaves in autumn. You notice, too, the way the silver threads of the telegraph wires have begun to stretch across the sky. They hang from weathered cedar poles, singing a low humming song as the wind passes over them. It is a soft, metallic vibration, a new kind of music for the wilderness. You imagine the messages traveling along those wires, quiet whispers of news, of families, and of a world that is suddenly becoming a little smaller, a little more connected. You find yourself leaning against one of the poles, feeling the hum against your shoulder, and you realize that the silence of the West is not being broken. It is simply being layered. The vastness is still there, stretching out for thousands of miles, but now it carries these thin, silver threads of human thought, weaving the distance together into a quieter, more intimate tapestry. The great drives have begun to fade now, replaced by the steady, repetitive rhythms of the settled ranch. You think of the years when the horizon was filled with an ocean of hides, a moving sea of cattle that took days to pass. Now, the herds are smaller, gathered in the lush valleys where the grass is thick and the water is constant. You spend your days mending the wire fences that now define the range, a task that is slow, physical, and deeply meditative. You feel the tension of the wire as you pull it taut, the zing of the metal a bright, clear note in the quiet air. You drive the staples into the cedar posts with a rhythmic thud-thud-thud, a sound that marks the boundary of your world. There is a profound satisfaction in this work. It is a way of caring for the land, of creating a space where the animals are safe and the world is orderly. The freedom of the open range has transformed into the peace of the home range, and you find that the walls of the world, though invisible, provide a sense of security and belonging in the small towns that dot the frontier. The wooden boardwalks are being replaced by stone, and the flickering oil lamps are being joined by the first warm glow of yellow light from the windows of new houses. You walk through the streets at dusk, your spurs giving a soft, familiar jingle that feels like a greeting to the changing times. You see the families sitting on their porches, the children playing in the dust of the road, and the old men watching the sky with the same patient eyes you have. The West is no longer a place of transit. It is a place of roots. You feel the weight of these roots in your own life. You have a favorite chair on the porch, a favorite horse in the stall, and a favorite star that rises over the same peak every night. The fate of the old ways is not a disappearance. It is a settling, like the dust of a long ride, finally coming to rest on the floor of a home. Your gear, too, reflects this slow transition. Your saddle, once built for the long, punishing miles of the trail, has become a comfortable, weathered companion for the shorter, more familiar rides of the ranch. The leather is soft as velvet, holding the shape of your body and the memory of every mile you have ever covered. You find yourself spending more time in the tack room, the air thick with the scent of neatsfoot oil and old pine. You work the leather with your hands, a slow and rhythmic motion that keeps the spirit of the old days alive in the tools of the present. You realize that you are the bridge between these two worlds. You carry the knowledge of the wild, open places into the quiet, settled valleys. You are the memory keeper of the wind as the night reaches its deepest point, and the stars pulse with a brilliant, ancient light. You feel a sense of deep, heavy contentment. The fade of the Old West is a natural process, as inevitable as the coming of sleep. You look out over the plains, and you see the lights of the distant ranches, small, warm sparks that look like fallen stars resting on the earth. They don't diminish the vastness, they emphasize it. They are small anchors of warmth in the middle of the great quiet. You feel your own breath slowing down, matching the slow, steady pulse of the land that has seen so many changes and yet remains essentially the same. The grass will always grow, the wind will always blow, and the sky will always be wide enough to hold every dream you have ever had. You are drifting now, floating on a sea of memories that are as soft and blurred as the twilight. The iron horse is a distant, soothing hum. The fences are silver lines in the moonlight. The towns are clusters of warmth in the dark. You are part of the story, a character in a long, beautiful narration that is slowly drawing toward its conclusion. There is no hurry to reach the end. The fade is slow, the light is gentle, and the rest is well learned. Imagine the world outside your blankets, the prairie dogs sleeping in their burrows, the horses standing quiet in the moonlit corrals, and the mountains watching over it all with their stone-cold patience. You are safe in the heart of this transition. You are part of the great, quiet now. Your body is heavy, your mind is still, and your spirit is at peace with the passing of time. The fire has reached its final stage now, a bed of deep, pulsing crimson embers that breathe with the slow rhythm of a sleeping giant. There are no more flames to dance, only a steady, radiating warmth that feels like a gentle hand resting on your spirit. Above you, the sky has become so dark and so deep that the stars seem to have descended, hanging like low lanterns over the rolling silhouette of the hills. This is the final hour, the moment where the story of the trail meets the infinite silence of the night. You are no longer moving. You have arrived at the heart of the great, quiet West, and the only task left is to breathe, to remember, and to let go as you lie here, tucked beneath the heavy, familiar weight of your blankets. Your mind begins to drift back through the long, golden tapestry of the life you have lived. It was a simple life, a life measured not by coins or titles, but by the movement of the sun and the quality of the silence. You remember the blue hour of 1,000 dawns, when the world was a silver ghost and the air tasted like cold mountain water. You remember the sound of the horses, that rhythmic, comforting munch-munch of the grass, and the soft, vibrating nickers of greeting in the early light. These memories are not sharp or loud. They are soft, blurred images, like a painting seen through a veil of woods. They carry no weight, only a sense of profound, settled peace. You think of the simple things that filled your days. The heat of a tin coffee cup against your palms on a frosty morning. The specific, honest scent of oiled leather and sun-dried hay. The way the wind felt as it moved across the open range, a constant, invisible companion that whispered secrets of the mountains and the plains. You realize now that the hardships, the dust, the cold, the long hours in the saddle were never really hardships at all. They were the price of admission to a world of absolute freedom. They were the things that made the rest feel so deep and the water feel so sweet. You wouldn't trade a single mile of the trail for a softer life, because the trail gave you the gift of being truly, quietly present in the beauty of the world. Listen now to the final song of the land. It is the sound of the night wind, a soft and rhythmic hush-hush as it travels through the tall buffalo grass. It is a sound that has no beginning and no end, a timeless melody that has played over these hills for millions of years. As you listen, you feel yourself becoming lighter, as if you are dissolving into the wind itself. You are no longer a person separate from the landscape. You are the grass, you are the stone, and you are the starlit air. You are part of the long, slow history of the horizon. Your life was a single, beautiful note in this great, eternal symphony. And now that note is fading into the peaceful silence of the conclusion. You think of your horse, your silent partner through so many miles. Imagine it now, standing quiet in the dark pasture nearby, its head lowered, its ears soft and still. It is at rest, just as you are. The bond between you doesn't end because the ride is over. It simply moves into the realm of memory, a shared understanding of the long trail and the quiet watches. You feel a deep gratitude for that companionship, a warmth that settles in your chest like the glow of the dying embers. The world is so incredibly still now. The slow fade of the Old West that we spoke of has reached its final point. The fences, the railroads, and the towns have all disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind only the primal, beautiful reality of the earth and the sky. You are back at the very beginning, in a world that is vast, unhurried, and perfectly at peace. There is no noise here, no hurry, and no worry. There is only the rotating of the stars and the slow, tectonic breathing of the mountains. Feel the heaviness of your limbs now. Your feet, which have walked the dusty streets of frontier towns, are now still and warm. Your hands, which have held the reins and the ropes, are resting light and relaxed. Your heart is beating with a slow, steady pulse, matching the rhythm of the wind. Every breath you take is a long, slow in, and a peaceful, effortless out. You are sinking deeper and deeper into the mattress, feeling the support of the earth beneath you, a solid and ancient foundation that will never let you go. The stars above you are pulsing with a soft, white light, like a million tiny hearts beating in unison. They are watching over you, as they have watched over every traveler who has ever slept beneath this sky. They tell a story of permanence, of a world that is far bigger than our small concerns. In their light, you find a sense of ultimate safety. You are a child of the West, a soul of the range, and you are being called home to the great, restorative dark. Imagine the final horizon now. It is a line of deep, velvet purple, where the earth meets the infinite. You are drifting toward it, floating on a sea of golden memories and starlit silence. There is no fear in this movement, only a sense of homecoming. You are resting with the wind. You are becoming part of the great quiet that you have loved all your life. The story of the cowboy is over, but the peace of the cowboy remains, a steady and eternal flame in the heart of the night. The fire is out now. The embers have turned to gray ash, holding the last of the day's warmth. The horses are silent. The wind is a whisper. And you are perfectly, beautifully, and eternally at rest. The range is still. The horizon is wide. The journey is done. As the last words of this story fade away, let yourself slip into the deep, dreamless sleep of the open plains. You are safe. You are warm. You are loved by the land.